So inside Blackboard, in our list of resources here, we're going to look at this, the using accelerometer data in Android, this first example on good tutorials, and look at that. So I'm just going to bring this up into another window here. And then we're going to put some of this code in ours. So I'm going to just modify my code with this example. So there are two ways to kind of implement listeners. One way is the way we did in the last one, where we had a separate code, kind of a separate little listener class inside our class. So we defined what's sometimes called an anonymous class, this new location listener object here, and then some methods inside this. So we actually kind of put like a little class inside our class for the location listener. So that's one way to set this up. This tutorial does a slightly different route. It does an implements route. So in our activity, we're going to say implements the listener, and then we're just going to put the methods inside our class itself, not inside a little subclass. So I'm going to copy this implement sensor event listener. And so under by activity, I'm going to add this implements sensor event listener. I've got to do an include for that, so I'll hit Alt Enter to get that included. So again, right under my main activity here, right under my class. And again, it should have a message here that says I'm missing some of the methods here. And I should be able to click on that little arrow and say implement methods. And there's two methods, on sensor change and on accuracy change. So I'm going to insert those. And it should add those two methods to my class, on sensor change and on accuracy change. So again, I just typed in the implement sensor event listener, made sure the import happened, and then also it popped up a little red warning, and there I could tell it to implement the required classes. Now, if I go back to my code down here, it actually has those same things. So if I didn't do that, I could just copy these and paste them over. So on sensor change, on accuracy change, these are my two things I have to implement in my code. So I'm also going to register the change. If you remember, I'm going to grab this where it says change and register this code. There's these sensor managers. So in our previous one, we created a location manager, we defined our listeners, and then we did our that's really oh, I still have this on click. That's weird. I'm trying to figure out what's going. Do you guys have an on click method on yours?
Yeah.
Huh, that shouldn't be there. Yeah, that's from the old one. I thought I deleted it. I'm going to delete that on click method. There. Okay. Okay. So there's the location manager request location updates. So this sets up our listener for locations. We want to do something similar for the sensor. So I'm going to add these 3 lines of code here. Set up the sensor manager, the accelerometer manager, and register my listener for this. So again, these are right here. It talks about the 2 methods that we have to implement, talks about the includes that have to be put in there, and then it has my onCreate, which is already there, and I just want to grab these 3 lines, the sensor manager, the sense accelerometer, and then the sensor manager register stuff. I'm going to grab those 3 lines and paste those in here. I'm going to have to do some includes here. I'm just going to hit Alt, Enter. Isn't that why isn't cannot resolve? It's not automatically including them. Let's grab these includes, these imports. And stick those in above, see if that'll help. Oh, I see. There are 2 private variables we have to define. That's what I'm missing here. There. And I actually want those. Okay, so there are 2 private variables, the sensor manager and the sensor. These are declared as private variables, and then there's the use of them here, those 3 lines. So I want to declare the sensor manager and sensor as global variables in my class. So right after the public class main activity, I want to put those 2 variables in there. They're both private, only used in this method. And then down below, still in the onCreate method, I'm going to set up those sensors, and they're going to tie in these listeners. So these listener events will be called whenever the sensor gets a reading for this. So I'm going to grab some of this sensor data and put it in here on sensor change and just show you how this is going to work. So there's some code in that example that you can put in the on sensor change. So on sensor change gives you a sensor event. With that sensor event, you can grab the sensor, and there's actually different sensors that you can check. So once we get this sensor from the sensor event, we've got to check what type it is. So we're going to check that it's the accelerometer sensor, so that should be giving us an X, Y, Z values. So there are 3 values. The X, Y, Z coordinates are part of this sensor event. I'm going to grab those out. And then finally, I'm going to display those in my text field. So I'm just going to create a format string like I did before and display this X, Y, Z in that format string. Now let's see if I can get this to run. So then this should display your X, Y, Z coordinates as you tip the phone from one place to the other. We're basically out of time, so I'm going to post an update with this in it to GitHub and save this version with the tilt sensor also out to the R drive, so you can take a look at it either way. One thing I forgot to mention is that when you're doing the location stuff, there's also permissions you have to do. So there's a spot in the manifest where you have to just specify permissions. Remember at some point when we're accessing the internet, we added these permissions for the internet. Same with what's called find and course locations. The find locations is the GPS. And so you have to add that in there if your app is requesting access to the GPS or the network locations. So, okay. So I don't need to see this on Friday. We'll do an actual in-class exercise, but we'll do it at a higher